Take a look at your feet, you weirdo. Seriously, chances are they're wrapped in a pair of socks, unless you're some sort of weirdo. Maybe they're ankle socks or crew socks or those fluffy things you wear on a lazy Sunday. I don't know what the hell those things are called. The grippy socks. We don't think about them. They're just there. What if I told you this mundane piece of fabric has a wild and surprisingly dark history filled with mystery, ancient secrets, and a whole lot of weirdness? From Roman sandal socks to a high-stakes textile arms race, the history of socks is anything but boring. So let's talk about the history of the sock. Stop looking at your feet. Stop looking at feet in general. Feet are gross. Feet are there to make you look like you have... Feet are there to make it so that you don't walk around like you're walking on fleshy peg legs. Stumps. Walking around on stumps. Feet are gross. It's a mystery as old as time. Where does the other one go? Well, it's the laundry vortex. Sometimes a single sock just gets lost in the chaotic shuffle of a full laundry basket, and it becomes a ghost in a sea of clothes destined to be a lone survivor. So, there it is. There's your answer. So today we're going to uncover the strange story. This channel, I'm kind of pivoting, I guess. I don't know. I'm tired of the same old. And, news is cool and whatnot, but everybody's doing it, and I want to do something a little different. So we're going to uncover strange stories behind everyday objects, plus history and lore of the world stuff. Today, we're going to be pulling back the curtain on the humble sock, and by the end of this, you'll never look at your feet the same way again. You should probably stop looking at feet anyways, because feet are gross, unless you have some sort of weird fetish. So we're going back to ancient Rome. The Romans, with their togas and intricate hairstyles, were not exactly known for their fashion practicality. But they did invent something that would change everything. The soccus, a simple sock. Now, this wasn't for warmth. It was to keep their feet from getting bruised and blistered inside their military sandals, which makes sense. And here's where it gets weird. The Romans saw socks as a sign of weakness and effeminacy. A true Roman man, a stoic, hardened warrior, would never cover his feet. So a soldier wearing a sock was kind of a fashion rebel. A scandalous choice that said, I value comfort over conformity. So imagine a Roman legion marching into battle and someone spots a sock. Oh my God. It was an act of rebellion against the strict fashion rules of the time. The social stigma was so strong that socks were banned from public events and certain military parades. So when we think of socks with sandals, is a fashion crime. Turns out it's a 2,000-year-old tradition. Our ancestors were the original style rebels. But the practical benefits were too good to ignore. The Roman army and its relentless push into colder climates like Britain found the socks to be indispensable. It went from a scandalous undergarment to a crucial piece of military equipment protecting soldiers from frostbite and blisters. The military often gets a bad rap for being stuck in its ways, but they were the ones who really got the sock off the ground. Ugh. So we fast forward to the Middle Ages. The humble sock had a glow up. It evolved into what we know as hose. These weren't just for your feet. They were form-fitting garments that covered your legs from ankle to waist. And they were a status symbol. The rich and powerful wore brightly covered hose made of silk or fine wool, and often with elaborate patterns and embroidery. They held them up with garters, and a well-dressed man would show off his legs like it was a runway. And this era was all about flaunting wealth and power through fabric. So if you can imagine a knight in shining armor, and underneath that cold steel is a pair of bright red hand-stitched silk hose, it was a secret flex. The more elaborate your hose, the more powerful you were perceived to be. And this led to a strange and specific problem, the perfect fit. Now, here's a fun fact. This is where the saying, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, really came from. If your hose weren't tight enough, you literally couldn't walk. So they'd have to have these leather bootstraps to pull them on. The problem was that the hose were made of woven fabric and not knit, so they had zero stretch. The poor wore loose, baggy hose that looked sloppy and had no shape. The rich paid a small fortune for a perfect form-fitting pair, and it was an elegant solution to a low-tech problem. And for 100 years, a man's power was measured not by his sword, but by the snugness of his socks. In 1589, an English clergyman named William Lee invented the first knitting machine, a stocking frame. His idea was revolutionary. Socks could now be made 100 times faster with perfect uniform stitches. It was the Industrial Revolution's sneak preview, and it was going to change everything. Lee hoped to get a patent from Queen Elizabeth I, but she refused. She said the machine would make knitters unemployed, and this is where the story takes a dark turn. Lee's invention was a threat to the thousands of hand knitters who made a living creating socks. They saw his machine not as progress, but as a monstrous device that would steal their jobs. The tension was real. It was classic man versus machine, and it played out in the world of hosiery. So you think you've had a bad day at work? Imagine your entire profession being made obsolete by a man with a weird machine who happens to be a priest. So, Lee eventually fled to France, where his invention was embraced. The French began producing a mountain of socks, and the English knitters, in an act of textile defiance, created a secret underground knitting club. They hand knit in secret, keeping the old ways alive and preserving the craft. It's a tale of invention, fear, and human stubbornness all wrapped up in a pair of socks. By the 1800s, the knitting machine had taken over. The invention of the cotton gin and the subsequent cotton boom in America meant that cheap, mass-produced socks were now a reality. For the first time in history, socks were no longer a luxury item for the wealthy. They were here for everyone. This led to a new kind of weirdness, the fashion sock. With a surplus of cheap materials and production, manufacturers began to experiment. This is when colored socks, patterned socks, and socks for specific occasions became a thing. It was a new era of personal expression. The sock went from being a functional necessity to a canvas for creativity. When your ancestors were fighting over silk hose, they could never have imagined the fashion anarchy we enjoy today. They probably look at our mismatched socks and would just give up. The Industrial Revolution turned the sock into a commodity, a cheap and disposable item. It also created new problems. Socks became a single-use item, a thing to be bought and thrown away. The craftsmanship was gone, replaced by efficiency. The sock had lost its soul, but it gained the world. So here we are. We wear socks every day, but we don't think about them. We lose them in the dryer. We have drawers full of them, and we buy them in packs of 10 or more. But they're so much more than a simple piece of fabric. They are a direct link to a past filled with rebellious Romans, stylish knights, and rebellious artisans fighting against progress. So the next time you pull on a pair of socks, remember the history you're wearing. Remember that they were once a scandalous military accessory, a symbol of high society power, and the cause of a technological revolution. This one small item tells a story of technology, fashion, rebellion, and a bit of mystery. That little hole in your sock, that's not a defect, that's a historical artifact. It's a legacy of an ancient, messy, and wonderfully weird journey. It's easy to dismiss the everyday objects in our lives, but the story of the sock reminds us that every single item we own has a history, a purpose, and a secret life we've never considered. They're portals to a past where things were made by hand, fought over, and obsessed over. So the next time you get ready to head out, give your socks a little nod of respect. Stop looking at your feet, you weirdo. They've been on a long journey, and they've got a lot to say. What's the weirdest sock story you've ever heard? Have you ever worn socks with sandals and faced judgment? We all have. We all have. Like it if you like it. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day.